Today, we're going to talk about a subject that's important to most and touchy to some. It's actually very important to me. It's something that I've thought about a lot as a kid and something that I still think about to this day. It's something that you may not be having on your mind, but it's something that definitely affects you. Yes, let's talk about manners on today's episode of the Coleman Nation. Let's go. So why am I doing an episode about manners and why are they important? Well, manners, if you look at it, grease the wheels of society. They make it easier for us all to get along and function with each other. Just as an example, how do you feel when you're treated rudely? What is your reaction? You can turn it around too and remember what it's like when you've maybe been rude to someone. How did they react? Now, recall what it was like when you were mannerly with someone and granted them importance. How did they respond? Where do manners come from? How do they come about? They come about from agreements. For example, the tradition of shaking hands, which has been considered mannerly for hundreds of years, was once a demonstration that I am friendly as I am carrying no weapon. You demonstrated by holding out your right hand and that you held no weapon and you weren't a threat. Table manners evolved into a fine art, placing and using the right forks and spoons for the right kinds of food. A person ate with utensils, kept one hand on their lap, and chewed with their mouth closed. I'm going to tell you a story, and this is something that was really kind of funny to me when I was growing up. I read a book called The Mummy by Anne Rice. And although I think it's important to understand manners and, how the forks work and all that kind of stuff, it's been a common trope in movies and so forth about the uncouth, person that comes into the royal family or whatever and starts to use all the wrong forks and all the wrong utensils. It's pretty funny, actually. But I remember that in that book, The Mummy by Anne Rice, there was a scene where it's about Ramses the Damned, who was, Pharaoh in Egypt. And he had become immortal and he goes to England and I think it was like late 1800s, proper England. And he goes to start grabbing food, or maybe it was New York. I can't really remember. It was a long time ago that I read the book, but he started just grabbing food with his hands and eating them. And everyone was like shocked that he was, violating the agreements and the manners of the day. And someone says, Ramses, you can't eat with your fingers. You have to use the forks. You have to use the utensils. And he said, no, only slaves use tools to eat. And he kept eating with his fingers. I thought that was super funny. So if you ever catch me eating, food with my fingers, I'm not trying to have bad manners. I just think that, I think that's a pretty funny story. The kings eat with their fingers. Anyway, so many agreements that created various manners aren't around anymore. For example, it's been hundreds of years since anyone had to demonstrate that they weren't carrying a weapon. And with young people, fist bumping and other things have replaced handshakes. It's interesting that these are still considered manners, aren't they? Table manners, unfortunately, have disappeared in many areas and many young people aren't raised to understand them. They eat sloppily, they talk with food in their mouths, they belch loudly and laugh about it. When they're taught manners and the reasons for them, they often find them enjoyable and demonstrate them whenever possible. If a person is expected to know various manners and they don't, it can be embarrassing. For example, if the average teenager today were somehow transported back to a turn of the 20th century upper class dining environment like we were just talking about, others at the table would be greatly offended. The teenager would be totally confused, not understanding what they did wrong. They had just never been taught. This can also happen when someone encounters another culture and brings their own set of manners and finds them totally ineffective. A friend of mine told me a story of going out to a Japanese restaurant with someone who was unaware of the subtlety of Japanese manners. The Japanese server was a little late in bringing a salad to this person, and he said, "That's fine, I don't want it now." The American server might have just taken that in stride, apologized, and left it at that. But the Japanese server was appalled and highly embarrassed. She actually asked the guy if he was sure he didn't want it, and the guy said, "Yes, that's fine, you can take it away." The server was almost in tears. My friend, who had some understanding of Japanese manners, said under his voice to the guy, "Take it, take the salad." He was insistent enough that the guy went ahead and accepted the salad. The server, looking immensely relieved, left the salad and departed. After the server had gone away, the guy asked my friend, "Why did you insist that I take the salad?" My friend explained, the server knew she was late in bringing the salad, so in her mind, she had already offended you slightly. She was trying to save face by presenting you with the salad. She would have lost face if you had rejected it, even if you were nice about it. It would have greatly upset her. The guy said, "Wow, I didn't know." When they were done and about to leave the restaurant, the guy kind of playfully bowed to the server. The server very seriously bowed lower. When they were outside, my friend asked the guy, "Did you notice the server bow lower than you?" The guy said, "Yeah. Why did she do that?" My friend explained, "Because you were the honored guest." My friend's dinner companion certainly learned something about the subtlety of Japanese manners that evening. Manners can really matter in the business world. When I'm building a team, which I often do in my business, one very important quality I'm always looking for in a team member is whether or not they have good manners. Are they punctual when arriving at a meeting? Being late to a meeting can be offensive to a potential client, even if you apologize. Do they grant importance to the person they're talking to? How do they make that person feel? For me personally, I'm always trying to make people feel important. I myself personally struggle with sometimes being late, but all the time I'm trying to make sure that people feel very, very important. And obviously that's never my intention if I wind up being late for something. But I look for these qualities in the way the person makes me feel because I know that's how they're going to make someone else feel. A person with slipshod manners won't make it in my business or on any team I'm building. I've had some interesting personal experiences with manners. There's one that really stuck out with me. A friend of mine was going to call me one evening, but I didn't get the call. We spoke the next day and she apologized for not having called. She said that she knew I had a baby and that she didn't want to risk calling and waking the baby. I told her that was one of the most mannerly things that had ever happened to me, and I thanked her. I was really, really impressed. I mean, she said that she just kind of let time get away from her. And she just didn't want to call late at night on the fear of waking up the baby. And I was like, that is absolutely the coolest thing. Sometimes just a little bit of consideration and a little bit of forethought go a long way in making others feel important. Earlier in my life, I attended a boarding school and earned my way through school by working long hours in the school kitchen. I was on a summer work study program. One morning, very early, I was working there and another guy came in and actually cooked me breakfast. It was incredible. He was actually my boss and I was very, very thankful and I thanked him. When I thanked him, he said, "You're welcome." He said it with such conviction that it really stuck with me. I really felt welcome. That was the first time in my life that I'd ever had someone say, "You're welcome." And the meaning of those two words just hit me like a ton of bricks. He was literally saying that anytime that I was going to ask him if he could make breakfast for me, that as a coworker, us both working in the kitchen, he would have been happy to do so. And it was really something that made a strong impression on me of why it's important to treat others as if they are important. And that's another example of fantastic manners. Manners can make life much easier for all of us, can't they? What has your experience been with manners? How do you feel when someone is mannerly with you or when they're not? Leave a comment and let me know. Make sure that if you like this content that you hit the subscribe button and you turn on notifications so that you know exactly when we're releasing new material. I always appreciate the time that you guys give to us here when we're bringing this content to you. So thanks for being here and thank you for your attention here on today's episode of the Coleman Nation. Thanks. Take care.